Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. There are no traffic jams along the Extra Mile when you're studying for your bar exam. And now, your host, Jackson Mummy, owner of the Celebration Bar Review.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 277 of the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. This is your host, Jackson Mummy. Boy, what a week we had last week. And it seemed like the heavens opened up and bar results came falling out of the sky in a whole lot of places. But here we are, and we're going to try and summarize a little bit of that for you today. And we have a spectacularly inspiring, wonderful interview with a student of ours who had sat for the Florida bar exam 4 times unsuccessfully, made the switch to the District of Columbia, a uniform bar exam jurisdiction, and she passed the UBE on her first try. And she didn't just pass it, she smashed it with a 270. And it's a great interview. I'm really excited to share that with you today. If you've been feeling at all discouraged as you got your results, stick around. I think you're going to love to hear this interview that we've got coming up with Vanessa. But as I said, this was a week where results came out, and they came out by a lot. So we never know when New York is going to release their results, but it seemed like we had finally reached that stage where we probably were ready for it. And in fact, near the end of last week, New York did in fact release their bar exam results. The results in New York, the only ones that we really know about at this point are the first time taker results. And obviously we're focused in large part on the repeat takers, but the New York first time bar taker rate went up, and the overall rate went to 65%. Now that's up 2 points from a year ago, not as good as it was in 2017. There were 10,000 people that sat for the exam in New York, 6,500 of them passed, and that's a bigger number by about 400 bar takers than we had the year before. Now, the first time rate for those people who went to ABA accredited law schools was an 86% passing rate. That's a good number, and that is up 3 points from a year ago. For those that took the exam previously, as I say, the repeat group, we don't yet have a breakout of that number. We would assume it's about 25% pass rate. That would seem to be appropriate given the overall numbers that we're looking at and the historical rate in New York. The other interesting statistic out of New York is the number of foreign educated attorneys. It was a record number of bar takers, over 3,500, and so almost over a third of all of the candidates sitting for the New York exam. 43% of those candidates passed. That's an increase of 2 percentage points from the previous year. So there is some good news there. New York certainly continues to be a good UBE jurisdiction. We've got some great interviews scheduled for you to watch and listen to with some of our successful New York UBE takers. So stick around in upcoming weeks. We'll share those with you. Congratulations to everyone that passed. If you did not pass the New York or any other UBE jurisdiction, hang in there. We've got lots of great information and lots of ways to assist you. And one of the ways that we can assist you is with our free webinar. It's called Do Something Different, Make the Next Bar Exam Your Last Bar Exam. This is offered on demand, and it's an opportunity to look at the 4 steps that successful bar takers follow. We go through, and you'll hear in their own words in video clips what they did to be successful. It's completely free, but you do need to register, and you can do that in the show notes, either here on the video page or in the audio of the podcast. I was so excited to talk about results and this interview that I forgot to tell you that you can watch our podcast episodes just by going to celebrationbarreview.com/277. That's the episode number. Or you can listen on Apple Podcasts, on radio.com, iHeartRadio, Spotify, lots of places where podcasts are syndicated. And we would encourage you to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. In any event, circling all the way around, back to our free webinar coming up so that you can watch on demand. All you need to do is register, just click on the button, and then we'll take you inside the 4 steps that successful bar takers use. And again, we've titled this Do Something Different because that's really what you need to do, is something different, and make the next bar exam your last bar exam. So I hope you'll stick around for that. All right. You can also go, by the way, to our website to register at celebrationbarreview.com/webinar. Okay. Now, see, I'm just so excited I can barely contain myself. Well, not only did we have New York results come in last week, we were not ready or expecting results from 3 other jurisdictions that decided to release. And one of them was the District of Columbia. That was a wonderful surprise because historically they've been at the very end of the results list. And this year, for reasons unbeknownst to anyone else, they released on October 24th. We don't have a lot of statistics in yet on that exam, but we do have an interview, as I said, coming up today with one of our successful UBE students in the District of Columbia. It's one of our favorite jurisdictions to take the UBE because it's just a smaller jurisdiction. The bar examiners seem to do a pretty good job of evaluating the work, and we really like it. So UBE released their results in DC, and then the big surprise was that Georgia and Texas, which had both announced results to come out the following week, decided to release their results on Friday. So suddenly we've got Georgia results and we've got Texas results both coming out the same time. Bit of a surprise in both jurisdictions. Now, it's as we're recording today, I just don't have statistics to give you in any of those jurisdictions. We'll get those to you in upcoming episodes. But those results are out. They're done. If you took the exam in DC or Georgia or Texas or anywhere else and you didn't pass, one of the things I really want to encourage you to do is to jump back in and get started right away. In last week's episode, I talked about some things that repeat bar takers need to know. And one of them was you got to know the odds against you, and you got to know what you have to do to be successful is to get started and beat your competition. And so I really want to encourage you, as bad as it feels today, if you were in one of those jurisdictions or any jurisdiction you didn't pass, get in and get started now if you're planning on taking the February 2020 exam. So where does that leave us in terms of results? Well, the only major jurisdiction to not yet release results is California. Those will come later in November. We do have some additional smaller jurisdictions that will release last week in October, first week in November. We'll let you know about anything significant there. I think the overall trend that we see now that New York has released their results is that it continues to be a very difficult bar exam field for everyone. It is particularly so for repeat bar takers. There's a little bit of hope for first-time bar takers and a bit of hope in terms of multi-state scores across the country. But by and large, if you're a repeat bar taker, you're still looking at about a 25% pass rate in almost every jurisdiction, certainly all the major jurisdictions across the country. And so it's a challenging environment, to be sure. And I think it makes it even more important to recognize the importance of doing different things. And that's really the transition for me to talk about our interview that we've got today with Vanessa. Vanessa, as I say, had taken the Florida bar exam several times unsuccessfully and had really pretty much given up on her Florida bar exam dreams after those attempts. Then life took her to the District of Columbia. She connected with us. We talked about taking the uniform bar exam, as you're going to hear. And she sat for that test in July of 2019 and passed the exam. You only need a 266 only. You need a 266 to pass. She got a 270. Which is really remarkable and wonderful. She used our personal mentoring course. So Vanessa and I talked 15 times. We did video conferences. She used photo reading. You're going to hear her talk about the importance of photo reading and why it worked and what made the difference for her. And you're also going to hear how she really structured her studies and put herself in a position to be successful in spite of all of the challenges of those previous bar attempts. It's an inspiring and uplifting interview. Vanessa is a marvelous example of what can happen when you simply change your mindset and you do something different. I don't want to keep you waiting, so let's go ahead and jump into our interview with this successful DC UBE bar student. Well, hey everybody, welcome back to Hanging Out with Successful Bar Exam Takers. And man, do we have a story and just an amazing the feels are all good today because we got Vanessa Harden here. Hi, Vanessa. How are you?
I'm doing great, Jackson. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Well, so tell everybody what your good news is.
So I found out, surprisingly, by the way, on October the 24th, that I passed the UBE on my first try.
Yeah. And as cool as that is, folks, the story you're about to hear is going to make all of that so much cooler. You can't even begin to believe it, because your story goes back to about 2014 or 2015, doesn't it?
Yes, I graduated law school in May of 2014, and thus the journey to licensure began.
Yeah. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about what happened after you graduated law school and the early parts of that journey?
So I graduated in May of 2014, and as all graduates across the country, started that 2-month journey of poverty and stress and studying full time. And the first time I took the Florida bar, I'll be honest, I bombed it. I totally bombed it. And I think that when I got my score report, I was just shell shocked. And I made the mistake that a lot of people do, is I went right back with that same big box corporation. Still wasn't working. I'm blessed to have amazing parents. So I didn't have that financial pressure. And I got up there to I think that I maybe improved 15 points. So, I mean, on the NBE, so very nominally. So leaving Tampa and getting that result in April, I think I was just emotionally shattered. And I felt like licensure was something that was never going to happen, but I'd invested so much in this degree that I kind of had to do it, right? Like I couldn't walk away from it. So I got into a career in child welfare, and I took some time off, and then I re-upped again in 2016 with Celebration. And I will say that was the closest I ever came to passing the Florida bar. I missed it by about 6 points on that last time. But I would say that was in no way attributed to the program. It was me. I was not mentally ready for that test. It had already beaten me, and it's so hard to defeat an enemy that you feel like they already have an advantage on you. So I did not really believe that I could do it. And so that last attempt, I listened to the things that you said, but they didn't resonate with me, because I felt like I was never going to be a bar passer at that time. And hindsight brings that to me. And so I bought in, but I didn't really buy in. I didn't do the photo reading, and there was a lot that I just didn't do. And I think we had some very grumpy calls.
Yeah, we had a couple. Yeah, we had a couple. You're not going to believe this, folks, but because what you see here, this happy, smiling, cheerful Vanessa was not always this way. And back then in 2016, I went back and looked at some of our notes before our call today, and I was struck by how discouraged you were.
Yeah.
And how I think you're right. I think the test had beaten you before you ever walked in the door. And as we sort of started unpacking the results from that attempt at Florida, kind of talk people through what your thought process was. You've now taken the bar exam 3 times. You were getting close, but not over the top. So at that point, and you've got a good job, right? You've got other things going on in your life. So what's your thought process then? Keep at it, stop, do something different? What were you thinking about?
I remember that I credit my faith a lot. And I remember always loving DC. Like I always loved this area. And my parents actually relocated up here. And I just felt like something on my heart to be like, apply for a job, even outside the legal perspective. I applied for a job, moved up here. And in January of 2019, I felt ready. I felt like, Vanessa, you got this. Like you were smart enough to get through law school, and you got this. And so I went back I said, I wonder if Jackson remembers me. I was like, I wonder. And so I kind of did the coward thing, and I just signed up for it. And I remember that first email that was like, welcome back. And I told myself, I was like, Vanessa, you're gonna buy in. But I think that it was just Vanessa getting my confidence back, and realizing that this was a new beast, and I felt like I could conquer it. And I think that we had some moments even this time, but I think that was what was different for me, that I was willing to buy in.
I want to talk about that buy-in, because what happened, when you came back after a layoff of a little while, and you said, well, I'm in DC, and I said, well, absolutely, you should be taking the uniform bar exam, because our strategy is, at some point, if you're bumping your head against the wall in a state like Florida or California or Texas, and you can take the UBE, it gives you so much more flexibility. And frankly, it's just a more straightforward exam. And you agreed to that. And then we talked about photo reading. And, you had said, well, I'm going to buy in, I'm going to use the personal mentoring, personal coaching, and photo reading. I want to talk for a minute about what you think photo reading is and what it did for you, because I think it was part of your sort of mental process of, I'm just going to go all in. Is that accurate to say?
That's accurate. I remember the first time I sat down and photo read, I got so much anxiety, because when you're working full time, your study hours are so precious. And I remember even telling you, what did I just do? Well, like, what was that? But when it clicked for me was when I started writing essays and the rules flowed out. And when I would do MBE questions, the wrong answers would like slap me in the face. And I would be able to get it down to two answers and just make that quick decision. And I realized that because I think all bar studiers were very neurotic. And so we would start, our little list. And I realized when I would second guess myself and think too hard, I would always get that question wrong. And with essays, the knowledge really came out of nowhere. But you got to the point where those outlines, like you just knew where the answers were. And so I think that it's a faith move, because it's very uncomfortable. It's something that you've never done before, but it worked. I look at my essay scores. It worked. Like it just worked. I don't know how it worked. It just worked. It was worth it. Like that money, I don't even think about it right now. It was an investment in my future, and it worked.
Yeah. And I think, and I could see the difference as you were starting to write. What Vanessa is describing is this process of intuition, that as you photo read, and you're reading at 25,000 words a minute, so you're reading this outline many, many times, and then you're activating it through the lectures and practice questions. But as you're writing your answers, you're making an argument, and suddenly the law is there. You're just typing it. And we talked about kind of keeping your fingers on the keyboard and just keeping moving and trusting it would be there. And what we began to see as you're submitting work, and we're talking about it, is these essays are getting longer. They're getting more substantively filled, and they're accurate. And I remember, going through some of them and saying, this is spot on. You're doing what you need to do. What did that feel like to you after all the other times when you've been through the exam? What was the sense that you were getting?
I felt confident. I felt confident, and I will say this, that I had a career that kept me close enough to the courtroom that I felt comfortable. And that I didn't feel too far out of my field. But I'll be honest, and I think that you said this in one of the lectures, I'm not sure which one it is. I started seeing lawyers, and I was like, these people are not smarter than me. Like, they are not smarter than me. They were able to conquer this beast as a bar exam. And I think that it really, I kind of got my swagger back a little bit, for lack of professional terms. And I remember you say all the time, especially in that last 30 days, we know how to get you there. We don't need your knowledge. We don't need your tidbits. And I really, for the entire process, I kind of was in a silo. I didn't talk to other bar takers. I didn't talk to my friends who had passed Florida. I really was just in a balloon of, if Jackson didn't say it, I ain't doing it, because this has worked. And so I think with photo reading, especially towards the end, those essays just kind of flowed. And then to get in the room, keeping your hands on the keys and just typing, you're like going from 3 essays in Florida and 6 in the UB. You walk out and you feel like, what did I just do to my brain? What did I just do? But the process worked. I would say, for anyone who is on the fence about the writing, no, it is a magic formula. It works. I looked at my score on the UB on the first day. I knocked it out the park on the first day and walked away feeling like, I don't know what just happened, but it worked. Photo reading worked because you don't have to think. The information just flowed. And there was one question that I think I totally glossed over, and that was my longest essay. And I think that the information is just there. You have to just trust the process, and it will come back to your remembrance in the exam room.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And of course, you had to take the performance test, which was not a part of the Florida exam. So that was something completely different to you. What did that feel like to do the performance tests?
It felt really good. I think that the way they structure it is that you do it, that's the first thing that you do. And it was very, very common sense. And I remember seeing the people just frantically typing. And I kind of wasn't. I made my headings. So once I made my headings, I was just ready just to type and make arguments. And so it was really interesting because you would see the people just frantically in their thing, and I had my headphones on, and I was actually humming a Christian song in my head and just typing. And I think it really kind of gave me a confidence boost because it felt like this is real life work. And I remember you saying in the lecture that a lot of times that kind of boosts people over the passing point. And I did not let the test freak me out. I think that was the biggest thing, that you teach us to be calm. I think like you put us through like military training, and then we get to the test, we just do it instinctively. I think that I felt good walking away from the first day.
Yeah, that first day is really a long day. And I think if you get that good momentum going with the performance tests in the morning, it really carries over. It's sort of like, okay, the afternoon I can really do this. I know that there are people that feel really beat up by the performance tests, and then they're down and they come into that, 6 essays in the afternoon on Tuesday, and they're just like, oh man, I got nothing in my tank. So that definitely makes a difference. And then you get to day 2 with the multi-state bar exam, and the process you were describing, where answers just sort of jump out at you, is what we call selective intuition, which is, again, using your photo reading, using the mind maps and the non-conscious understanding, and you start to see the answers, right? I mean, you weren't sitting there saying, well, I wonder if A is better than B or C, right? That was not the process.
Not at all. And I think that your voice was in my head, especially on the second day, about like if you're thinking like that question has you beat. And so I did a lot of just, nope, this answer's right. And just the lectures, I think, and you also given a suggestion about listening to lectures faster. And again, that was something that you had told me back in Florida, didn't buy into it. But I live in DC. Anyone who's been up here, traffic is a monstrosity. So I said, you know what, how can I make these hours better? I would literally be in the car listening to lectures at, faster. And it doesn't feel like you're taking in information, but it works. Like, I think it's just some witchcraft, like, Jackson, it just works. And so when I was on the test, answers really did jump out. And I didn't finish extremely early. I probably finished within the 30-minute time frame in the morning and the night. But the scores bear that out, that they were consistent with the practice test, and I did not feel defeated by any question. There were some questions that the wording was tricky, but they were very similar to the questions that we had in practice.
That's great. You were working full time while you were studying, and you were writing, submitting work to me. You were in the course where you did 15 conference calls with me, and you were very diligent about getting those done. I mean, from the time you enrolled, you went, and we talked pretty much every week, I think, leading up through the exam. How did you manage to keep all those balls in the air? I mean, how did study and work and family and other things going on? How did you arrange your schedule?
I'll be very frank. I had no dating life. I had no social life.
Okay, folks, she's available now. Okay.
Like I did, and I was very blessed in my family, in the fact that they had seen so many bar failures in the past that they respected it, and I took over. I took over my parents' living room, and they just got it back the day after the bar. But I will say that setting a set schedule, and with my job, I was lucky to have the flexibility of, I would get up at 6, and that would be my quiet time. I would stop working, if at all possible, by 4:30, and those would be my evening hours. And weekends were the bar. I would get up, I would go running for an hour, get a cup of coffee, and then you're just set in the corner. In the beginning, because I started studying in January, in the beginning, it was easier to kind of find some social time. by May, no one wanted to be around me anyway. But that quiet time was really, I would give myself maybe a workout, but set a schedule and stick to it. So I'm not a morning person, so I would work, study maybe from like 4:30 to maybe 10. I realized that studying after 10 is kind of productive because I'm exhausted. So I would give myself 3.5 hours a day, but if at all possible, start early so that by the time I got to the summer, I was getting towards a review period, which I think really made a big difference. That I spent the summer in review and I wasn't submitting essays in 2 weeks before the bar. So if at all possible,
I thought that made a difference.
Yeah,
I thought that made a big difference too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, the other part of this was because you were consistent, as you were seeing growth and development, it was building this confidence early on, not at the very end. I mean, you were confident for a while going into the exam, and we, fully expected you to pass. And I think that when the light goes on and you go, wow, this is working. I remember a couple times you're like, wow, photo reading thing must be really working. I can tell the difference. I think that at that point it became pretty important for you to just start building on those gains and sort of locking them in. So you go to the exam, you go through these couple of days, and DC is a very different place to take the exam than Tampa, Florida, isn't it?
It is.
I tease the DC examiners. They're a little quirky.
They are.
And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, somebody said to me the other day, said, well, you don't think I should take the DC exam? I said, oh, no, I think I love it. I said, but, as compared to sort of the rigidity in Florida, right, where it's all, you don't belong here,
Exactly. It's a weeder outer process.
Yeah. DC is a much more, I don't really know what the right word is. It's just a different experience. But would it be one that you would recommend to people to take the exam up there?
Yes. The UB, I think that Florida, they do not want any more, in my personal opinion, they do not want any more attorneys. And the test is designed, I believe, to induce the most anxiety and designed to trip you up. The UBE is very, very straightforward. The NBE is the same beast. It's the same ugly beast that it always is. But the essays they were extremely straightforward. There was no getting trapped on an exception. They were it was very straightforward. So I would say for anyone who has struggled with the state bar, the UBE could easily be your saving grace. I think that it was one of the better decisions I've made in my life to switch to UBE jurisdiction. It's very quirky. We did not get a lunch break the first day. So it was just enough time to run and get a bag of chips from Starbucks. But again, you were in my head about that's how it is in real life, that I work with enough attorneys that your hearings are delayed, you don't have enough time to eat. And so I think it was just a part of walking into your profession. I felt like you're going to walk out of here with your license. And there were days that I doubted that, but that's what I felt like. I'm going to walk out of here with my license. I'm going to leave it all on the field. And I was prepared very well.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of the other quirky things about DC is that we never know when they're going to release their results.
Yeah.
Last summer, they were the last jurisdiction to release. And so this week, because we're just finding this out, New York releases their results on October 23rd. And then lo and behold, on the 24th, right? How did you find out that DC was releasing? Did you get an email or what happened?
So this is a story that will live in infamy. I was at work and I was on the phone with my sister and I see this email pop up. And I remember, this is crazy. I remember reading the first line that says, "We're pleased to inform." And I saw successful, and then I saw the number. And I kid you not, Jackson, my first thought was that number's higher than the passing number. Like, that was my first thought. And I sent the email to my sister. I said, "Read this. I'm going to get up and walk away from my desk. Just read it." And she starts screaming, and I'm literally having a meltdown. All my coworkers come over there. They're like, "Did somebody die? Like, are you okay?" And I was like, "I passed the bar." And my boss said, "Oh, we knew that was going to happen." But I would say that in that moment, the weight of the journey just really fell down on me. And I remember when I emailed you, I said, I don't know if this is real, but I think that it was a moment of just pure, like, okay, like, you did it. And so I'll never forget it. I printed out the email, and I had no idea. DC said mid to end of November. I booked a trip to Singapore to see my best friend, because I was like, that I don't know what this day is going to hold. And they posted, and then DC they post, I think, like, public results on the 30th, but it was the best surprise ever, but
That's
very
awesome.
Very shocking.
Yeah. Well, now, you know that we have a tradition here when we're interviewing people. And the tradition is that, the reason that my wife, Sarah, and I started the business a long time ago was to help people get their lives back.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the best tradition of Dave Ramsey and some others, we like to have the countdown yell here at the end. So what I want to do, if you're going to be a good sport, is in a minute, I'm going to count you down, and then I want you to yell, "I have my life back." I want you to just let her rip, because I know it's one of our favorites. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, ready? All right, okay, here we go. So we're going to count down. 3, 2, 1.
I got my life back.
Yay! What a great feeling, right? I mean,
it is.
And I think that, Vanessa, one of the great things about your story, and I know the reason that it's going to motivate so many other people, is that you're really honest about how discouraging it felt at different times, and then picking yourself back up. And, there were some moments when you and I talked when you were, I probably reduced you to tears a couple of times. Yeah. And not because I wanted to, but just because there's so much involved, and it's so loaded and so tough, and you wanted it so deeply. And it's frustrating, right? But then the moment happens, and it's the release of all that frustration. What would you say to somebody who's kind of struggling? They've taken the bar unsuccessfully before. They're just not sure what to do next or how to go. If you could talk back to them now, what would you say?
The first thing I would say is that your worth is not determined by you getting your license, and do not take this test until you are mentally ready to take it. Your journey is not going to look like your coworker's journey. It's not going to look like, your neighbor's journey. Don't feel bad about taking some time to emotionally heal from the trauma that is preparing and taking the test. Be kind on yourself, and come back to the process when you are ready to be fully committed, whether that is emotionally, financially, spiritually, whatever it is. But allow yourself time to grieve that you didn't get it the first time or the second time, but don't give up. I think that's the thing is that don't give up, and do not rely on your emotions. Find one person who can be honest with you, and who you can be honest with about the journey. I think that was what the difference to me. And take a licking and keep on ticking is what my grandma always said.
Yeah, absolutely. I also know that for you, and you've mentioned it already, your faith is very central to who you are and how you did it. Can you talk a little bit about what that meant to you in this process? And because I think sometimes people think they have to set their faith aside when they're studying.
I think I love the Old Testament and the fact that we see some of the most unlikely figures used by God in some of the most exponential ways. I think about Joseph. I think about Moses. I think about David. David's story always struck out to me because he wasn't even invited to the party. David's father was like, "Oh, you mean my son? Like, he's going to be the king? Like, no, you don't."
He went to that law school?
He went to that law school? Exactly. Like him, like he barely made it. He didn't make it on moot court, but he was anointed in secrecy. And even when it was whispered in his ear that you're going to be the king, he didn't walk into the palace. He walked into battles, and that's really what stuck out to me. And there's something, it's somewhere, I think it's in the email that you send the Sunday before the test. And I will never forget those words, that I don't pray for you to pass the bar, because I know that God's plans for you are bigger.
Yeah.
And that's really what resonated with me, is that, Vanessa, I know the plans that I have for you. And if those plans include licensure, awesome. If those plans don't include licensure, I love you anyway. And I think that my faith is really what got me through. That I realized that either way, no matter what happened, I was still loved by God. I was still chosen by God. And in that moment, and I'll share this, that the wait for results is so long. So for August and September, I didn't think about it. I didn't think about it. But late mid October, I started thinking about it. And I remember Monday, I told the Lord, I said, Lord, I don't want to do this again. Like, I don't want to do this again. And I said, God, what would life look like if I just was a JD for the rest of my life? Like, what would life look like? And I even went so far as to saying, God, help me to prepare for that. And when I saw the results, I felt like, you know how like when Sarah said, God, like me pregnant, she laughed at God. I felt God laughed at me. And he was like, but little did you know that that was not going to be your life. And so I say that cling to your faith, and know that God is bigger than licensure. He really is. And because when you get the results, the devil comes with, well, now you got to find a job.
Yeah.
And,
Well, there's that part of it too. You have such wisdom, Vanessa, and I love that. I love what you just shared. It's, I'm not going to church on Sunday. I'm just going to take that and play. But one of the things, and talking about, what happens post exam results, is that in the UBE, if you pass in DC, the passing score required minimum is 266, and you did better than that. And so now you actually have the ability to waive into or be licensed in a lot of states, including New York, New Jersey, Illinois. Maybe you sat down and figured out how many states you're actually eligible for yet?
I'm Maryland. I think Maryland is the next step. I work in child welfare. I have a soft spot for the kids. And so I'm over here like, in what state can I save all the babies? And so I think Maryland is that next one. And yeah.
That's pretty cool. And so you've got this opportunity to be multi-jurisdictionally licensed. So we go from not being licensed anywhere and just being stuck in Florida to now you could be in, I don't know, probably 15, 20 states if you wanted. What a huge set of choices. And now your life unfolds. And now the next part of your journey unfolds. And I know it's going to be spectacular just because of who you are. And I know that your commitment to making the world a better place is a big part of this. We are very excited at Celebration Bar Review when we can help people like you become members of the bar, because I think our entire society is enriched by that. And so I have to say, I cried a little bit when I got your email that you had passed. It means a lot, and I'm so thrilled for you, so excited for what this journey means for you and for your family. You do get your life back, and now you get the new challenges of where do we go from here and what do we do?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I'm deeply appreciative that you would share your story, because I know that coming on here and talking about what happens, sometimes people are like, I don't know, I want to do it, but I guarantee you there will be many, many people who will watch this and go, oh yeah, that's me. I see myself there. Right.
It's cathartic. It's cathartic. And I would say for anyone, my inbox is open. Like if you just want someone to pray with you, or you just want someone to tell you, that sit this one out and get yourself together. I'm there, because I think that this will make me a better attorney. I would never want to go through it again, but I think that this would make me a better attorney, because this was not handed to me. It wasn't.
No, you fought for this. You fought for this. Yeah, let me be clear, folks. If you think that Vanessa just backed her way and stumbled into this, it didn't happen that way at all. This was a lot of work, and I think it makes the victory that much sweeter.
It does, and I think that it makes you more appreciative, and I think it will make you a better advocate, because now I have the ability. Now I have a little gravitas behind my name, and that's not conceit. I think that humbles me in a way to advocate for the people in society that need a voice.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it has been a real honor for us to be part of your journey, and I look forward to you sharing with our students, as you indicated. We've got a private Facebook group, and one of the great parts is that our successful students stick around and help out.
Yes, you're not getting rid of us, Jackson.
I love that. I love that. It's kind of my happy place, and so I do want to just recommend any of you to reach out to Vanessa if you're wondering, because I think your story is so remarkable and wonderful, and I hope you'll stay in touch. I look forward to seeing the cool stuff that you do.
Yeah.
And again, just want to thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
All right. And to all of you who've been watching and listening, I hope you took Vanessa's words to heart. That is some of the best wisdom I have heard from anybody in a very long time. So really excited. And we'll see all of you soon in another episode, another interview. But for now, we're going to say bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Well, that's our episode for this week. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Vanessa. She's quite an inspiring and wonderful example of what can happen when you study and really put your mind to it and work hard on the exam. And really, ultimately, when you decide to do something different, as you saw that she did. And of course, that's the title of our free training. It's called Do Something Different, Make the Next Bar Exam Your Last Bar Exam. It's on demand. You can watch at the time and location and place that's most convenient for you, but you do need to register. So just click on the show notes for the registration button, or go to celebrationbarreview.com/webinar to reserve your seat. Get on that webinar. It is life-changing. It really can make all the difference for you in how you prepare, study, and ultimately pass the bar exam. Well, good luck to everybody that's still waiting for their bar results. For those of you that were not successful, hang in there, keep your heads up. Look forward to better results for you in February 2020. And we will have more really jaw-dropping, inspiring interviews coming up over the next couple of weeks. I can tell you I've recorded some of them already, and wow, they are amazing what some of these folks have done. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we'll see you next week along the Extra Mile.
Thanks for listening to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers at www.celebrationbarreview.com.